Welcome to the program. William Sila is a sign language there at the bottom end of your screen. I'm Linda Gutu. Let's begin this bulletin by focusing on NYS. So tonight, the gloves are off. Anne Waiguru is speaking out, and it is vicious. The former Devolution Cabinet Secretary has now dragged the names of Majority Leader Aden Duale and Senator Kipchumba Murkomen into the 791 million shillings NYS scandal. Waiguru says the two allies of Deputy President William Ruto attempted to slow down the investigations into that scam. In fact, Waiguru alleges that Murkomen threatened her with unspecified action if she did not stop pushing for the probe to continue. The damning affidavit describes former hairdresser Josephine Kafura as a mere front of a powerful cartel of political forces that benefited from the NYS loot. KTN's Joa Geo begins our coverage of the intricate web that just got murkier.
A day after Anne Waiguru appeared before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for nearly 10 hours, details of what the former CS may have told the investigators are coming out. Like her accuser Josephine Kafura, Anne Waiguru too now has her affidavit, an equally explosive one at that. Apart from denying any personal relationship with Kafura, Waiguru has struck right at the center of the political establishment.
So we want them to devote more money to development.
First on her list is Majority Leader Aden Duale, a key figure in the Jubilee administration. In the affidavit, Waiguru says that Duale sent several intimidating messages to a senior officer at the NYS. Waiguru says Duale asked the then acting Senior Deputy Director General of NYS, Eden Harake, to go slow on the saga, or he, Duale, risked losing political support from his party, URP. Mr. Duale warned, says the affidavit, that he needed to be careful lest he's used and dumped by the other side of the coalition. Waiguru makes even more startling claims about this man. Senator Kipchumba Murkomen of Elgeyo Marakwet, another confidant of Deputy President William Ruto. Waiguru claims that Murkomen went to her office saying he represented two of the people whose accounts had been frozen over the 791 million shillings scandal, Josephine Kafura and businessman Ben Gevi. She says Murkomen even issued her with a threat. Senator Murkomen passed a message that I should tell the DCI to drop the investigations and said I would face unspecified consequences if I did not adhere to these demands, states the former cabinet secretary. Waiguru claims she ignored Murkomen and proceeded with the case, but that shortly after that, the impeachment motion against her was moved in Parliament. Then there is a Farouk Kibet, a personal assistant to the Deputy President, who the affidavit says was closely related to businessman Ben Gevi. Waiguru states that police reports indicated that during the investigations, there were up to 180 phone calls between the Deputy President's personal assistant and Ben Gevi, some lasting for several hours. Waiguru says the hairdresser whose damning affidavit has kicked off this latest storm, Josephine Kafura, was and continues to be a front in what she describes as a powerful cartel with beneficiaries in the political establishment. And the drama, it appears, has only just begun, as what was meant to be a flagship project of the Jubilee administration quickly turns into a living nightmare. Jogeo, KTN News.
Okay, like I told you, that affidavit by former CS Anne Waiguru has drawn quite some reaction from some of the names mentioned in that affidavit. Leader of Majority Aden Duale has reacted to that affidavit just a few minutes ago, and he says he is as clean as snow. I'm going to move back just a little bit so that the Super Bowl can focus on, you can focus on the Super Bowl. You get the reaction of Leader of Majority Aden Duale. He says, I am as clean as snow. Let Waiguru produce the evidence of the allegations allegation that she is making in that affidavit. Let's move forward and take a look at some of the reaction, really, what Leader of Majority Eden Duale had to say to that affidavit that has been just released by former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru on the NYS saga, 791 million. Duale says Waiguru is in the deep end and she's trying to pull down with her as many leaders as she can, and making it very clear that he has never had any business whatsoever with NYS. That is Eden Duale reacting to the affidavit by former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru on the 791 million shillings. Do we have another board on the reaction by Leader of Majority Eden Duale? So in other words, he says that affidavit by former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru is laughable. He is as clean as snow, and making it clear that she needs to produce evidence to support some of the claims that are in that affidavit, and making it clear as well that probably the former Cabinet Secretary is in a lot of trouble and she's trying to go down with as many leaders as possible. This has just come to our desk a few minutes ago, so no doubt by tomorrow we'll have more reactions for you on different leaders who have been mentioned in that affidavit. Leader of Majority Eden Duale. Let's see how this pans out tomorrow. So let's stay with NYS, and that forms the basis of a big question tonight. We're asking, should Duale and Murkomen step down as MPs to pave way for investigations? Should Duale and Murkomen step down as MPs to pave way for investigations? We'd love to know what you think. You can tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. You can tweet me directly at Linda Ogutu. I'll be sampling some of your views during this bulletin. Kindly begin with a yes or a no so that I'll be able to know where to place your views. All right, let's stay with NYS. The prime suspect in the 791 million National Youth Service scandal, that is Josephine Kafura, appeared before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission today of an affidavit she swore linking several people into the deals. Kafura has, among others, linked former Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru into the scam that the CS had earlier appeared to have been cleared from. Kafura, who says her companies, that is Form Home Builders, Roof, and All Trading and Reinforced Concrete Technologies, received 791 million as payment for the supply of road construction materials for the Kibera and Mukuru slums, claims Waiguru engaged her and even oversaw the registration of the companies. She arrived at the commission offices at around 10:40 a.m. accompanied by her lawyer Dennis Mosota, and has been grilled by investigators there for over 10 hours. All right, so tonight, KTN can authoritatively report that the government might have lost billions of shillings to corrupt individuals in the much-decorated NYS transformation project. The money, being held in trust by law firms, others in hands of powerful people, has been siphoned out of the government coffers using the much-praised and talked about IFMIS financial system. KTN's Dennis Onsarigo has spoken to two Ministry of Devolution officers who say the much-talked about 791 million shillings theft is a drop in the ocean.
The story of Josephine Kabura, a city hairdresser who is now caught up in a multi-million shilling saga, shocked the nation, already reeling from the horror stories of corruption at the Ministry of Devolution. Her explosive affidavit quickly turned the once powerful Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru from a powerful witness to a prime suspect in the 791 million shilling scandal. But now it appears Kabura's story was only the tip of the iceberg. Exit Josephine Kabura, enter Jane Wangeshi. Jane, who was a supply chain management assistant, in her first television interview says she was at the center of the Kibera slum upgrading project.
Okay, we did not have something concrete that we were going to do one thing because we were given a blank sheet. When we go to Kibera, you are going to do slum upgrading. But in that slum upgrading, we did not have specifically what we were to do because initially we started by cleaning and then we came up with now the ablution blocks.
Jane first broke her silence last month when in an interview with our sister newspaper, The Standard, she claimed that officers from the banking fraud unit stole more than 130 million shillings. Jane says the workload at the Kibera upgrading project was a huge undertaking. The Kibera project quickly became the very symbol of a new look National Youth Service.
Is that we were working for 24 hours. As a human being, you cannot work for 24 hours continuously in 7 days a week.
And the cabinet secretary routinely led high-profile tours of the alley of the slum that were now being transformed into more livable neighborhoods. But behind the pomp, Jem claims unseen hands were working round the clock to make a killing.
Some people who are not civil servants, and I remember on 3 occasions when they came to me directly, some of them they wanted to be working with me where I was working, and then I told them we cannot work where I was, for one because of the regulations, the government regulations. These people are interfering because they were saying that we don't have time, they want the goods to be delivered to the user directly. So you see now when things go direct, you don't see them, you don't receive them, and now you cannot account for them.
Further, some goods were paid for without a quantity or quality check, according to the former NYS officer.
In Kibera, I was receiving materials being delivered by NYS lorries. So from the CS office, they are the ones who are arranging, and they are the ones who made that possible. They are the ones who allocated those lorries to be coming to Kibera now on behalf of the supplier. And even they did not have the number plate, so
KTN has now learned that most of the goods delivered to the slum were overpriced. For instance, the National Youth Service bought 3,000 jembes at a cost of 2.7 million shillings when the market price was 1.3 million shillings. A ream of photocopying papers was sold at 1,200 shillings, nearly 3 times the market price of just 420 shillings. Slashers used to open up trenches were acquired at a cost of 400 shillings when the slashers in the market went for about 200 shillings. Then came the news of an attempted theft of 800 million shillings.
When Mr. Haraki claimed that his password was stolen, we wrote the statements, and then later our computers were taken. They went for forensic auditing, and then we were told later that nothing wrong was found on our computers, but they were never brought back.
Those out to steal the money first made it appear as if the password had been stolen. But KTN News can authoritatively report that the attempted stealing of the Deputy NYS Director's password was a ploy to cover up an irregular payment of 595 million shillings paid out to suppliers associated with senior Ministry of Devolution officials.
There was a conspiracy to defraud NYS 695,400,000 in respect of committed disputed transactions.
At the initial stages, when whatever you key in, you cannot come back later and try to change or to alter, or somebody else cannot come and alter what you did initially with the IFMI system.
In fact, a key reason for the introduction of the IFMIs was to minimize cases of corruption. To cover up a likely backlash from junior staff members forced to endorse the 595 million shillings, senior ministry officials came up with a plan. The ministry announced a password had been stolen and there were attempts to steal 800 million shillings. For the first time, a senior finance officer in the Ministry of Devolution has told KTN News that the public was cheated into believing there was an attempted stealing of the password, but the officer who asked us to conceal his identity says, in actual effect, money had already been stolen.
Now, the payment has 25 stages. By the time I was at that end, we do it up to 14 stages. And then the remaining stages up to 25 is at the ministry. So when somebody now initiates that document, it goes now to Halak. And it's Halak now to approve, and then now the payment continues. So this is the time when now he says, instead of it being sent to him to approve, somebody used the password to approve on behalf. That's where now the battle was.
Yeah, he came up and said, somebody, he checks in the system. If it's like I was telling you, I think he logged in and he realized payments had been done, and then he called for a printout. In fact, he went to the ministry.
The official says there was genuine work done by the Ministry of Devolution until what he calls interference from outsiders began to threaten a multi-billion shillings budget.
To call them, they're coming from the big office. You guys pay. Pressure is mounting. And then, have they delivered everything? So if not, say, they haven't fully delivered. If the same people can be urged to fully deliver, they will pay.
The finance officer says the first time they encountered pressure from their superiors was when they were forced to process fast payments amounting to more than 595 million shillings.
Now, the issue of the stolen password actually came as a result of, people refusing to endorse in accounts, procurements. They refused to endorse. And as a result, that caused mass transfers of officers in those respective accounts for refusing to play ball to the stolen password when that payment was about to be put into the system to go through payment. Now, the documents have got to be there. This time there were no documents. So the issue of now using a password to facilitate the payment, and you need to see hard copies which were not there. So you'll have wondering, why? What am I going to do?
KTN News has now learned that the password was not stolen, but indeed the 595 million shillings had already been approved for payment. Junior staff members were only being forced to rubber stamp the payments by entering their details in the system without proper paperwork.
Sometimes last year, the CS wrote a memo to us, NYS, and she instructed us that anything beyond 2 million, we cannot do it at the NYS headquarters. So anything that was which reached that mark 2 million was being done by the MTC. MTC was at Treasury.
Insiders believe the question of the stolen password was meant to divert attention from the colossal amount of money already reflecting in the IFMI system network. Then came the 791 million shillings scandal. 21 Ministry of Devolution and National Youth Service officials were suspended after police investigations. The investigation was ordered by the then CS Anne Waiguru, who claimed she had blown the cover of corrupt senior and junior staff members working in our ministry. Junior staff members suspended over the attempted theft of the 800 million shillings have told KTN News they had nothing to do with the scandal. They claim they were the perfect victims of a deep-running corruption scheme.
24 billion, 18 was for infrastructure, wages for the community youth, and the remaining, which is around seven there, it was for the recurrent issues. So that particular time, before this issue was now going to explode, we had actually cleared almost a third of that amount, three quarters of that amount. Yeah.
Layman's language, how much is that?
Layman's language, can you say 12? Around there, 12 billion. 12 billion.
The finance officer told KTN News the focus should now move from the 791 million shillings to billions of shillings that he says have been paid out in the past. Investigations by KTN indicate millions of shillings have been paid out to several people under dubious transactions in the past. It is unclear what the fresh round of investigations by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will unearth, but it appears getting to the bottom of the 791 million shilling scandal may only be a first step. Many billions of shillings may yet be out there in the pockets of numerous faceless actors. Denison Sarigo, KTN News.
So Anne Waiguru has just sworn an affidavit, and in that affidavit she mentions Leader of Majority Eden Duale and Senator Kipchumba Murkomen in the 791 million NYS saga. So a big question tonight you're asking, do you think Duale and Murkomen should step aside as MPs to pave way for investigations? What are your thoughts? She adversely mentions them in that affidavit. of course, on that NYS story that we have been covering for you for the last couple of weeks. Benson Kisanya says, of course, Duale and Murkomen should follow in the footsteps of Waiguru. Ahmed Noor says, yes, they were telling others to resign when mentioned in fraud. Let them walk the talk. Master Kago said they should step down, let them drink the water they preach. Musa says, yes, since they claim to be as white as snow, let them step aside for their innocence to be proven. Just some of your feedback on our big question tonight on that affidavit that has just been released by former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru, dragging in leader of Majority Eden Duale and Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. Keep tweeting us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya, at Linda Ogutu. I'll keep sampling your views during this bulletin. We are taking a short break. When we get back, we'll focus on that tribunal that has now been constituted to look into the conduct of Supreme Judge Philip Tunoy. Stay with us. You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has in just over 24 hours reversed his own decision not to appoint a tribunal to investigate Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoy. The president has now suspended Justice Tunoy and appointed a tribunal to investigate the 200 million shillings bribery allegations against him. Uhuru, who yesterday cited an ongoing case on Justice Tunoy's retirement age for his refusal to appoint a tribunal, says he arrived at his new decision after further consultations. Take a look. A flip-flopping president. Just a day after he declined to appoint a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoy, President Uhuru Kenyatta made an abrupt about turn, suspending Justice Tunoy and appointing a 7-member tribunal to investigate him. The tribunal will be chaired by Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board Chairman Sharad Rao. Judge Roslyn Korir, retired Justice Jonathan Havelock, Judith Gusera, James Kaberere, Abdirashid Abdullahi, and George Munji are members of the tribunal. In a statement, Uhuru says he suspended Justice Tunoy and appointed a tribunal after further consultations and review of the relevant provisions of the Constitution and given the strict timelines for setting up of a tribunal for the investigation of a judge. His new decision just in time to beat the 14-day deadline set by the law for him to suspend Justice Tunoy and appoint a tribunal. In his earlier decision declining to appoint a tribunal as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission, a letter from State House to Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga cited an ongoing case on Justice Tunoy's retirement age. The High Court ruled that judges should retire at the age of 70 as stipulated by the new Constitution. But 72-year-old Justice Tunoy moved to the Court of Appeal on the basis that he was appointed under the old Constitution, which set the retirement age at 74 years. The president, in his refusal to set up a tribunal, said doing so while the appeal is pending would create a constitutional crisis. Now he says he believes the concerns about the retirement age for judges may be addressed by the tribunal itself, which may independently consider the merit, if any, of such concerns should they be raised before it. Analysts say by refusing to appoint a tribunal, Uhuru would have created the constitutional crisis he was trying to avoid in the first place.
The Constitution does not anticipate any circumstances or any situations where once the Judicial Service Commission has made a recommendation that a tribunal be formed, that the same can be declined or the president can give a different view about it. So what we have here now is a situation where we are in untested waters. The president has a different opinion from the JSC. What next? A stalemate. What is that stalemate? A constitutional crisis.
The president has done what the law expected him to do, beating the 14-day deadline to do so by only a few hours. And attention will now shift to the tribunal as Justice Tunoy, who has insisted on facing a tribunal, begins the battle to clear his name of allegations that he received 200 million shillings from Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero to rule in his favor in an election petition filed by Ferdinand Waititu. Rita Tinina, KTN News. Let's break this down for you and bring in Charles Kanjama, an advocate of the High Court, is joining us from our City Center studio. Kanjama, if you can hear me, what are your thoughts on the back and forth, specifically from the office of the president?
I think, Linda, the first thing I would say is that the decision of the president that was made yesterday by his office not to appoint a tribunal was clearly an ill-conceived decision. Today he has changed his mind, he has appointed the tribunal, and we need to applaud him for that. There is a saying that goes, a wise man changes his mind, a fool never. In this situation, in light of the unanimous view of our lawyers on this issue, the president has changed his mind. I think we need to applaud him and now wait to see what the tribunal will unearth.
Okay, here's the thing, Kanjama. So this tribunal has been set up by the president, but then there is a case currently in court touching on Justice Philip Tunoi and the retirement age. So here's the question that a lot of people are asking. So if the court gets to decide that he needs to retire at 70, where then does this leave the tribunal?
The jurisdiction of the tribunal is dependent on the fact that Justice Tunoi is still a judge of the Supreme Court. In the event Justice Tunoi is found not to be validly a judge because he should have retired, or in the event that Justice Tunoi himself decides to voluntarily retire, then the tribunal's mandate will come to an end. We saw this happening in the case of the former Deputy Chief Justice Nancy Baraza when she retired or resigned rather than face a tribunal.
So the Supreme Court has 7 members. That is, you have the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, and 5 other judges. And for it to be properly constituted, it must have at least 5 judges. So as we know, the Chief Justice, that is Willie Mutunga, has opted to retire later in this year, probably June. Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal and, of course, Tunoi are in court over retirement age. And, of course, we're also focusing on that tribunal that has now been set up to probe Justice Tunoi. The question is, this leaves that court with 3 judges. Does Kenya still have a Supreme Court from where you stand?
Under Article 163 of the Constitution, it's very clear that the quorum of the Supreme Court, the full bench, is at least 5 judges. So for as long as we will have 5 judges able to sit, there is no cause for concern. The reason why we are a bit concerned is because we know the retirement cases may affect both Justice Rawal and Justice Tunoi, who is also facing the tribunal. We are also aware that the Chief Justice Willie Mutunga has expressed his intention to retire in June this year. So in the event these 3 judicial offices fall vacant, then we will have a crisis. My expectation is that if a vacancy arises in the position of Justice Rawal and Justice Tunoi, it will be up to Justice Willie Mutunga to probably reconsider his decision to retire, at least until we have filled some of those vacancies in the event they arise.
So in the event that he does not reconsider?
There's also the question of Justice Willie Mutunga reaching his own retirement age of 70. And the question is whether he will reach that age in June this year or in June next year. So if the 3 judges will be out of the Supreme Court at the same time, then we'll have a crisis, because it means the Supreme Court will not be able to deal with any substantive matter until that position is addressed.
Oh, so whichever way this tribunal goes, at the end of it all, probably we don't know how this is going to go, but in the event that they actually find that Justice Philip Tunoi has a case to answer, and we've seen this in other jurisdictions, you get to a point where people now start asking for retrial, especially on cases that judges who are being probed have handled. Do you foresee that happening in Kenya, that people will go back and ask for retrials in cases that Justice Tunoi has handled before?
I think it would be quite speculative to imagine that because an allegation has been made in one case, it affects all the judicial determinations of a particular judge. You can only seek revisiting of a decision on the basis of cogent evidence that there was some irregularity in that particular decision. Right now, the only case that is being probed is on the Kidero and Waititu election petition and the circumstances around that. So I would only foresee that case as being subject to revisiting.
So looking at that case against Justice Philip Tunoi, are you worried about the credibility of the Supreme Court of Kenya?
Sorry, I did not get your last question.
Looking at the probe that is now focusing on Justice Philip Tunoi, are you worried about the credibility of the Supreme Court of Kenya? From where
all actors in the judicial sector, legal justice sector, are worried. It's also important, Linda, let me add, that under the current proceedings, in the event the tribunal does come up with a finding that is adverse to Justice Tunoi, the Constitution allows him to appeal within 10 days from the decision of that tribunal to the very same Supreme Court where he sits. So this is yet another possibility that can open, I don't want to call it a can of worms, but open a situation of anxiety among the stakeholders in the legal justice system. Will the Supreme Court be able to deal with a claim against one of its own judges? My personal belief is they can, but the optics of the matter, the perception of the public may be different.
Charles Kanjama from our City Center studio, always a pleasure speaking to you, shedding some light for us on that tribunal that has now been appointed to look into the conduct of Supreme Court Judge Philip Tunoi. You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. We are taking a break. Abby Agina is up next with the day's business news.
Many thanks for keeping it KTN Prime. Time now to catch up with the latest from the business world. My name is Abi Agina. Mumia's Sugar Company has fallen deeper into the red in the half-year results to December 2015. The miller posted a 1.58 billion shillings after-tax loss compared to 1.54 billion shillings net loss in the 6 months to December 2014. Sugar sales grew by a tenth to 2.9 billion shillings. Bottled water sales also dipped by more than a third to 8.6 million shillings, while the energy generation unit recorded zero revenue as the miller did not sell any electricity, and ethanol sales increased by nearly a fifth to 435 million shillings compared to 376 million shillings generated in the half year to December 2014. The miller is now seeking an additional 2 billion shillings bailout from the government. This will be the second bailout that the debt-saddled Mumias will be seeking from public coffers, having received a 1 billion shillings rescue package last June to pay off farmers' debt and buy spare parts for the factory. Moving on, for the past 3 years, the Kisii County government has made significant strides in implementing its development agenda in its quest to ensure residents enjoy the fruits of devolution. Despite numerous challenges experienced at the start and during the transformation of the county government led by Governor James Ongwae, it continues to break new grounds for the development. KTN's Fred Moturi takes stock on Kisii County's development this far.
Based on the 2009 population census estimates, Kisii County is blessed with a population of 1.3 million people, with another 600,000 people in local and international diaspora. Diaspora remittances contribute greatly to the socio-economic development of the local economy. Agriculture is the mainstay of the economy, and it employs about 80% of the workforce. The budget for 2015-2016 financial year was 7 billion shillings, and the Kisii County Governor James Ongwae prioritized healthcare, water reticulation, roads development, market development and social protection.
Devolution has done a lot. As I'm talking now, the services, let's talk about Keroka Hospital, they have improved. There's ambulance. Patients are being handled in a professional way.
Investment opportunity sectors in Kisii include the healthcare sector, private practice, technical education, manufacturing, hydro and solar energy, hospitality, real estate, and several others open for private investors' engagement or programs to be undertaken under the public-private partnerships as outlined in the county resource map.
Maji ni bure. Na tulikuwa tunachota maji almost 3 kilometers.
The Kisii markets have been witnessing vibrant trade activities during the day, and now the integrated street lighting program launched in Kisii has promoted its town to a 24-hour economy. The project has been replicated in 52 market centers.
Kama sisi wa mama tunakuanga waoga wakati wa giza, lakini sasa hivi tuliwekewa lights, hatuogopi kabisa. Hata saa ngine tunauza mpaka karibu tunafika saa 6 ya usiku tukiwa kwa soko.
Further, Kisii is home of soapstone as a unique rock whose carvings graces major world capitals like the United Nations headquarters in New York and UNESCO headquarters in Paris. This stone is still mined crudely and exported to other countries for value addition to make products like chalk and paint, among others.
Ingalau tupate factory iwe ziage hii mawe.
Even though the county has a challenge of intensive land subdivisions for inheritance purposes, it is committed to actively pursue interventions that will make Kisii County the economic powerhouse of the region. Fred Muturi, KTN News, Kisii.
Many thanks there, Fred. Of course, Kisii County will be having an investor conference come Thursday this week. Well, we want to bring you a story that you might have been a victim of regarding when an accident happens and how fast does it take for an ambulance to come there. Well, 4 young innovators inspired by tragedy of a family member have developed an emergency application that allows one to save a life with just a touch of a button. KTN Zinzi Kibiku met up with the young software developers on this week's episode of Texpo. Take a look.
According to the World Health Organization, about 3,000 to 13,000 Kenyans lose their lives to road traffic crashes every year. Majority of these people are vulnerable road users such as pedestrians, motorcyclists and cyclists. But with a click on a mobile phone, all that can change. A mobile app developed by university students here in Kenya could be the gateway to reducing time lost between an accident and the time of rescue, which could in turn lower casualties. The innovators behind the application are 4 friends who came together when one of their sisters was involved in a grisly car accident that almost saw her lose her life.
It all started with George. We met, we decided to talk, and he's like, Akim, I have this idea. So he sits me down.
When I thought of the idea and I drew everything on paper to ensure that everything comes into play, it was working on paper. So how will I move the idea from paper to a physical aspect or a virtual aspect that people can be able to tap into?
My role in this project is primarily doing the user interface design and for user experience.
Question is, if Mobile Life were to not only succeed as one of the applications designed in Africa by Africans, how will this application save lives within communities?
Open the navigation panel, then tap on my account, then you fill in the details, your personal details, that is your ID, your names, your residence, phone number, your next of kin details, that is the name of your priority list, the people who should be notified in case something happens to it. From the other side of it, from now the emergency personnel side of it, they also have their app, the iteration of the app. So what they'll do, they'll access the emergency interface. Then from there, they'll be able to see where the distress is coming from, the location.
Martin Kisheru, CEO of TechWiz, affirms that the vibrant space within the tech ecosystem within East Africa and the continent at large is one that is attracting investment. Trade relationships would boost the market across borders, and for Martin, this is a platform where today's generation can flourish. According to Martin, for young entrepreneurs, one aspect that is ignored is copywriting one's idea and forgetting the legal work that goes behind a startup.
We've seen very many, far enough cases, not just here, even in developed markets where people got conned of ideas and products that they went to market with because they did not protect themselves early enough.
As Africa continues to pave the way within the tech sector, the young entrepreneurs believe loving what you do and sharing a vision are characters that tomorrow's leaders should cultivate. Zinze Kibiku, KTN Business.
Many thanks there, Zinzi Kibiku, for that interesting story on innovation. And speaking about innovation, Britam asset managers are saying that the economy is likely to grow by 5.5% to 6%. Interesting stuff there for innovators as well as entrepreneurs. On that note, that's all we had time for here on KTN Business on this particular evening. My name is Abi Agina. Let's link up tomorrow for the latest in business news.
Let's look at sports now. Football coaches drawn from all over the country now have a chance to win the Coach of the Month award starting from next month. Well, this is after Sports Journalists Association of Kenya's signed a deal with Fidelity Insurance worth 1.1 million shillings that will see the Coach of the Month pocket 50,000 shillings and a trophy. The deal that will run for 11 months will see coaches from all divisions in football in the country fight it out for bragging rights. This is expected to develop the sport in the country.
And most times than not, you'll only hear the coach being mentioned when there's clamor for them to be replaced or fired. But this time you're saying, no guys, let's flip the ball a little bit. Let's recognize the ones that at least deliver value.
This recognition of tacticians will instill confidence in the coaching fraternity and help build capacity of the local coaches while making them attractive to jobs in the region and beyond.
A total of 28 teams will take part in this year's Standard Chartered Road to Anfield tournament, where the winner will get a chance to take part in the international tournament in Liverpool, England. The winners are expected to emulate last year's winners, Postal Corporation of Kenya, who finished second behind South Korea. Liverpool legend John Barnes is expected in the country on Friday evening. He will conduct coaching clinics to under 14 players on Saturday before gracing the Road to Anfield tournament finals at Kasarani Stadium. Standard Media Group has been pulled in Group B alongside Xerox, Nairobi Bottlers, IBM, Nokia and Safaricom.
This side. The winners of the five-a-side tournament on Saturday will earn an automatic ticket to Anfield on that day. The winning team will attend a Premiership league game at Anfield and will benefit from professional training sessions with Liverpool FC legends and coaches.
Organizers in Zurich are making preparations for FIFA's Congress, which begins on Friday. Delegates will debate and vote on a wide-ranging schedule of reforms to soccer world's governing body, and a new president will also be elected. The organization has been making global headlines since last May, when authorities arrested FIFA officials and others in Zurich on corruption charges. Former president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, was banned from the sport for 8 years for ethics violations, along with European soccer chief Michel Platini. The main reform proposals, which need the approval of 3/4 of the 207 voting national soccer associations, will be incorporated into a new set of FIFA statutes and come into force on April 26th.
Then let's teach these mosquitoes a lesson, because Mama has Mortein Doom, which makes mosquitoes go away and not come back the whole night. So you get a peaceful night's sleep all night long.
Mortein Doom. A peaceful night is a Mortein Doom night.
So tonight we're focusing on that affidavit that has just been sworn by former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru on the 791 million shilling scam at NYS, and she has dragged into that scam Leader of Majority Eden Duale and Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. So on our big question tonight, we're asking you if you think Eden Duale and Kipchumba Murkomen should step down as MPs to pave way for investigations. We're using the hashtag Waiguru Bombshell. Ahmed Noor says yes, they were telling others to resign when mentioned in fraud. Let them walk the talk. Albert Collins says less. Let Honorable Duale show Kenyans how clean he is with facts, not mere use of similes. Nakuru's Finest says NYS scam becomes more dirtier. Nothing stays in the dark forever. El Barry says yes, Aden Duale must vacate his office as the majority leader till he's cleared on NYS scandal. Anthony Amimo says when you see hyenas fighting each other, you know your goat has been eaten. Some of your feedback on our big question tonight, you can track that. Use the hashtag Waiguru Bombshell. We leave it on that note on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Linda Ogutu.